This video is going to be pictures of my latest stroker engine. And these are highly detailed pictures. You can tell this is a stroker crank that is put in a halfway completed DIO or Elite SR50 block. You can see with the black markings is where the boost board has got to be cut, along with the other black markings in the that have to be shaved out. This is a Fongier 50mm crank, I believe. And our next one, this is a stroker crank, and it has a dummy bearing right here, or a guide bearing. This shows the crank sitting in the block with just the guidelines. It has not been, no work has been done to the block. This is what the big stroker crankshaft looks like. It has to fit securely into the block. This here is the difference. The stock crank is on the right, and you can see how tall the stem is compared to, or the crankshaft, compared to the stroker crank on the left. And you can see that I believe that the diameter on this one is 44mm. On the bottom here, the diameter on the bottom of this one is 50mm. So that's the two crank comparisons there. You know, pictures with 1,000 words. So these are some of the things that I use to put my new motor together. We have gray moto seal with ultra copper for gaskets, JB weld to hold the bearings in. Also, JB weld is used to hold the oil plug in. These three tools right here, these two black ones on top, and these two black ones right here, those are Honda tools that work on the right and the left side of the crankshaft to pull it through the cases. There's another tool that looks like the one on the left. All three of them are about $150. It's very expensive. This is a tool for the to get off the big nut on our rear clutch, along with racing. These are racing gears which allow, these are 13 by 31, which allow speeds of up to about 70 miles an hour. Okay. This is a stroker crank, 50mm. And this crank has been put in the case, and as you can see behind the rod, it's been cut out. Around the intakes, it's been cut out. So this side of the case is done with the big piston on that. And the oil plug has been put in, which is right here. But that oil plug will also be JB welded in there to keep it. It has to be airtight because of the motor is a pump, so it has to be done like that. This is the bottom of the crank, 50mm crank in the completed DIO block, and you can see here where the rear port has been cut out and how far on the edges that the crankshaft has got to be, your clearances. So yeah, that's better right there. The clearances so that the crank can go through it correctly. This picture right here is looking down at down the throat of the cylinder, and you can see the clearances on the left and the right of the crankshaft. Also, how much has been taken out of the front. The front and the back are here, here, and right here and here where the arrow is. Those have to be taken out if you plan to put anything bigger than 107 cc cylinder in, because the big cylinders need more work, more fit. This right here is the back. That's the boost port. It's shown cut out in the pink, and the green is where the edges have been taken out of the to hold a bigger cylinder. Here's another picture of the crank in the completed crankshaft with both of the cases pulled together. You can see the cases right down here and right down here. Here they're very, very snug to hold a 50mm crankshaft. This is a good picture right here. If you look at this dummy bearing, the dummy bearing has been hollowed out on the inside right here just by a few thousandths, so the crankshaft can actually drop in there and you can pull it back out. There's no press fit, but what it does is it guides the crankshaft around this circumference or diameter of the crankshaft well, and you can see just how much meat has been taken off to allow the 50mm to fit in there. Then I'll work on the edges here and here. This is a rear boost port. So that kind of gives you an idea. You know, picture's worth 1,000 words. I think there's 1,000, or I have a lot of pictures anyway. I'm not really good with photography. This is a fongier, and this is a 50mm crank. And you can see by how close the holes are, the crank case holes. So it's a very tight fit, but it does work. That's completed. Here's another picture. This is going to be about, I think, a two-part deal. Two-part or three-part. This is the fongier 50mm crank, and you can see the bolt holes and how close that the crank has to fit in there. And here's the rear boost port. This is my markings. It has to be cut out there for the boost port to work with the new cylinder. And here's another view of the crank as it sits in the case. And this was all done with a Dremel tool. Let's see. This right here shows you, this is the Honda crank tool right here. Now you have to remember that on a Dio crank, this tool will work on this one side. It will not work on this side. This side has a bigger end. So you have to buy another sleeve, not a sleeve, but a, it's that screw dealer right there that has a bigger end that fits there. Then there's a sleeve that the nut pulls against to either to pull a crank through. These are the dummy bearings, new bearings, and that's what I tap it in with. Alright, and then we'll go to part 2.